Want a simple world? Follow the simple world.
On this April Fool's Day, the Russia-Ukraine Friendship Treaty, which has been existed for 20 years, officially expired. Although the date when it happened sounds to be a joke, it was really not. After countless quarrels and conflicts over the past few years, Ukraine and Russia have long been hostile, and without the constraints of that piece of treaty hereafter, will they still have a chance to get along well with each other? The day before April Fool's Day was the last day of March, when Ukraine held their new presidential election, and if any candidate got over half of the vote, the new president has already begun to appear on the shows. The results just came out in the early morning on April 2nd. Unfortunately, no one got over half of the vote, so a second round of voting has to be held in 20 days, and the lucky man who won in the second round will be Ukraine's new president. Ukraine's last presidential election was in May 2014, when incumbent President Poroshenko won more than 55% in the first round, so he took office as president for 5 years. When Poroshenko won the election, he told his fans excitedly that he wanted to end the war and bring peace to Ukraine so that everyone could live a good life. But Poroshenko's performance over the past 5 years is not satisfactory, which is the reason why he only got less than 60% in the first round. In addition to the title of president, Poroshenko has a nickname, King of Chocolate, because he owns a big confectionery manufacturer. It's rather rough for Ukraine in 2014 when rich Poroshenko came to power. Crimea was just taken away by Russia in the name of referendum, and several eastern states kept independence under the support of Russia. After going through the riot and turmoil, Ukraine's economy had fallen sharply. On this premise, Ukraine chose the tycoon Poroshenko as its own president. The thoughts of ordinary people are sometimes simple and naive. When they chose a rich man as president, they subconsciously thought that rich people may be able to help them richer. In fact, this is impossible at all. Whether a person can get rich is nothing to do with whether the president is rich or not. Getting rich is very complicated, and usually rich people conform to the rule of the market and then accumulate their wealth. This rule is hard for most people to find out or conform, so the rich people are not that many. No matter how leisure a president is, he is not in a position to help the public make a fortune. But do not assume Poroshenko to be the same as Trump, who were all businessmen before being a president with little experience in politics. Actually, back to 1999, when Putin started his first term as Russian president, Poroshenko had already been a member of Ukrainian parliament. 10 years later, in 2009, when President Putin stepped down and became the PM, Poroshenko had become Ukraine's foreign minister. Being so long in Ukraine's politics, Poroshenko is kind of an old player. He has been involved in both business and politics, which is already quite successful. Although he has a rich experience in politics, Poroshenko did not perform well in the past 5 years as a president. Otherwise, he wouldn't get so few votes this time. But speaking of votes, he still got a little higher than his longtime rival, Tymoshenko, who only got 13.4% of the vote. 15 years ago, Tymoshenko was Ukraine's prime minister. At that time, she was an earth-shaking politician in Ukraine. Tymoshenko was a charming lady with good appearance. What is more, she also had a wardrobe full of branded apparel and bags, and she was also good at dressing up. Every time her public appearance would draw a lot of attention, to the extent that she was named as one of the most beautiful female politicians in the world. Before she stepped into politics, Tymoshenko was also doing business. Her business was even bigger than Poroshenko's. Poroshenko is called the King of Chocolate, while Tymoshenko is the Queen of Natural Gas in Ukraine. Since her enterprises almost monopolize Ukraine's natural gas supply, which brings her numerous wealth, money is her last concern. We all know that Ukraine is not a natural gas producer, but almost all natural gas Russia sold to Europe has to pass through Ukraine's territory. So, to offset the levy, Ukraine is able to buy natural gas from Russia in a low price. Actually, Ukraine used to produce natural gas, But during the period when Soviet Union was racing against the United States and its allies, all natural gas Ukraine produced was sold to Europe to exchange foreign currency. Decades later, the natural gas resource was drying up, only leaving the well-developed gas pipelines. Tymoshenko accumulates wealth and fame by the natural gas business. Once she was fed up with earning more, she stepped into politics to start a new life. From the two candidates Poroshenko and Tymoshenko, we can see the characteristics of Ukraine politics. That is, many business people take their role in the government. That is a real living example of business in politics. In Ukraine, being a politician never requires specialized knowledge nor political experience. As long as one has great influence and power, he or she will be favored by the voters, and once they collect enough votes, they can get involved in managing the country. After introducing the two lower-ranked candidates, here comes the leading runner, whose name is Zelensky. Zelensky enjoys not less reputation in Ukraine than the other two, owing to his stardom, which focuses on popular comedy. Therefore, when it comes to social influence and audience gaining, Poroshenko and Tymoshenko might not be in a better position comparing with Zelensky. Zelensky is not only an actor, but also a director and a script writer. He owns a company to produce and distribute TV programs, which made him a successful and rich businessman. What he has been doing is not necessarily related to politics. Before his running in the election, his political experience probably comes from his scripts and lines. Zelensky's companion is rather special, and most of the members are from his cast crew. Also, his companion's slogans and policies lack of depth. For example, to boost Ukraine's economy, to improve the relationship with Russia, to enhance the dialogue level with the United States, as well as to sign trade agreement with EU, etc. He spoke everything so easy, like Russia, US, and EU are all welcoming him at all time. Politicians are actors. If you want to make political success and keep it long, you need to hold back your real thoughts, to be a coordinator among various interests and organizations, to speak those pleasing the majority, while yourself don't even buy it for real. Not a real actor is getting close to be a president. It's Wizardly event to turn a real actor into a politician. Poroshenko and Tymoshenko are both old players in politics, but they screwed up this time. The majority of Ukrainians voted for a comedian. Is Zelensky settling with Ukrainians' hopes or with their great disappointments? Obviously, Ukrainians are putting up with the current situation. Having tightened their belt for a long time lets them down on old-school politicians. Voting for green hand for a chance of luck is best wish, yet a high risk. If Zelensky actually takes the power in 20 days, will he be able to be a good president? To answer this question, we'd better compare him with US President Trump, who became a president from a property tycoon in 2017. Is Trump a good president? We can't tell at this moment, but Trump does a lot of difficulties in his work, which come from internal affairs, public opinion, and foreign affairs. In the 2 years of President Trump's term, the loss rate of White House staff is very high. The conflict between the Republicans and Democrats is fierce, and the wrangling between American media and Trump is endless. So if Zelensky became president, he may face a harsher reality than Trump. Will the government officials cooperate well with his case crew? How to face the challenge of controversy and protest caused by his policies? If he could be aggressive in fighting corruption, how will he deal with the troubles caused by the rich and powerful? Even the experienced Poroshenko and Tymoshenko cannot handle these problems. Will there be any chance for Zelensky? Those internal affairs are only part of the challenge that Zelensky would face. Perhaps people can say more about the relationship between Ukraine and Russia. The very first country established by Slavs was Kievan Rus, whose capital was Kiev, the current capital of Ukraine. After Kievan Rus was destroyed by the Mongols, the Slavs escaped to the Grand Duchy of Moscow to make a new start. After hundreds of years of development, the Grand Duchy of Moscow became the Russia Empire. The current Russia Federation was born from the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So, tracing from the bloodline, Ukraine is Russia's old home. But now these two families are against each other due to historic and modern enmity. In Soviet era, in order to accelerate industrialization, Ukraine's coal, oil, and gas were exploited and sold on large scale. At the same time, Ukraine's crops were forcibly collected, caused a serious famine up to 5 million deaths. This colonial-like history has filled Ukrainian with hatred of Russian. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Ukraine divorced with Russia without hesitation and determined to embrace the EU. But the eastern Ukraine, which borders on Russia, has its own plan. People living in the eastern Ukraine speak Russian only, and they travel between Russia and Ukraine frequently. They do believe they are Russians all the time. If Ukraine joined the EU, then eastern Ukraine would choose to join Russia, and Russia must be very happy to take it over. Most of Ukraine's political struggles and civilian riots are caused by this kind of regional disunity. In the eyes of Russian government, all the countries bordering its western territories are buffer state between Russia and the EU. Now that Ukraine is forced to become a buffer state, they'd better ally with Russia. If no alliance, how about to stay neutral? If they can't even be neutral, that would be awkward. If Ukraine wants to join EU or even NATO, the Russians are bound to do something to stop it. Russia takes Crimea and support the separatist regime of several eastern states. All these are based on the psychological insecurity. Actor Zelensky won over Ukrainian voters with his acting and audience appeal, but conquering voters may be the easiest. Problems should approach successively when he becomes the president. Mr. Zelensky belongs to pro-EU camp. Any of his future pro-EU policies would worsen Ukraine's relationship with Russia. But if he's not pro-EU, he may soon lose his job as president, which even might implicate his career as an actor. The rules of the game in Ukrainian politics seem to be derived from freedom and equality, because anybody can run for the president's seat. This rule makes some of us who don't know the truth envy, but apparently Ukrainians have their own problems. Since the benefits from the freedom and equality are not obvious, the best person under this system may not become a president. The good life in the future is not guaranteed either. To be a president requires experience and also skills. If the country is advanced and developed, mature and stable, so good that the administrative rule of government is indispensable, then the rules of freedom and equality are very appropriate. For Ukraine, which is stuck in the turbulent internal affairs and diplomacy, the rule of government is critical. If their president can be elected among the most experienced professional politicians, the country and people may save some twists and turns, and their good future is also more guaranteed.
Thanks for watching. Share if you like us. See you next time.